Hello, citizens of the multiverse. Welcome to another episode of Comics Insider here on Dark Knight Nation. Thank you guys so much for joining us. So, this one is a little bit late. For those of you that watch my videos regularly, you know my voice was pretty shot, and I'm still kind of recovering from it. But for the most part, I have my volume back. I cannot sound super monotone, so we're going to attempt to make this video. This video was for the week before Christmas, and the books that we're talking about today are going to be from that week. Don't fret though, we will have a Comics Insider for the appropriate week coming very soon. But if you guys are unfamiliar with the channel, we like to do comic book reviews, story dissections, discussions. We really just like to pick apart what makes these stories so great and talk about why we like them. On occasion, we even talk about some geeky movies and other great content, so make sure that you subscribe down to the channel below for more content like that. We also do live stream discussions all the time, so if you want to join in the conversation directly, that is always open for you guys. So if you guys are unfamiliar with Comics Insider, this is the show where we kind of go over a couple of the big books that came out this week. 3 that I probably particularly enjoyed or just made note of. This particular week was fairly slow, but we did have some really great sleeper books, probably ones that you guys wouldn't be expecting, and that's what we're here to talk to you about today. So, today we're going to be going over Aquaman number 43, which is the new creative team of Kelly Sue DeConnick and superstar artist Robson Rocha under the title, and I figured, you know, it corresponds with the new Aquaman movie that just came out, which I really dug. If you guys want me to do a review or a reaction to that, feel free to let me know. I'll be glad to do that for you guys. We also have Freedom Fighters number 1 by Robert Venditti and Eddie Barrows, 2 of my favorite creators in comics. I don't think that either one of these guys gets enough love, so I'm really excited to talk to you guys about this one. And then we also have American Carnage number 2 by the great Bryan Edward Hill and artist, I think it's Leandro Fernandez? Yeah, Leandro Fernandez. Awesome book, super topical, finds a great way to approach some really deep subjects without really picking a particular side, and we'll get a little bit more into that. But it's written by a friend of the channel, Bryan Edward Hill. Not only does he create great content, he's a great guy. And if you guys haven't seen it already, we were privileged enough to get another interview with the man, the myth, the legend, and you can find that one right up here. Otherwise, you can go check out our original interview with Bryan Hill right over here. So, I've been blabbering long enough. Let's get right into the books. So, let's get things moving with Aquaman number 43 by Kelly Sue DeConnick and artist Robson Rocha. Now, this is going to be the beginning of their run. I don't know how long it's going to be. I assume it's going to be fairly decent in length, considering this has been hyped up for a while. And obviously, this is great timing with the Aquaman movie having just come out. And, you know, we got to get long-haired, wild and free Aquaman. This issue opens up after the results of Justice League Drowned Earth. I wasn't a huge fan of it. All you really need to know going into this was that there was a world-shattering event. Aquaman was kind of thrown through a rift into space-time. I don't know where exactly he landed. We only really know that it's some island that a lot of other deities or prominent figures of the sea have kind of washed up. So this issue opens up with a mysterious woman cloaked in a red veil dancing through a stormy island side. And so we get this great little bit of internal monologue. I'd assume it's her, saying in the beginning there was the ocean. The ocean was the source, the rule, what we call land, the exception. And it kind of delves into how man forgets about the ocean, and one day the ocean in its wrath will reclaim the earth and its people. And she leaves a dead rabbit behind as a sacrifice, presumably to the sea. And so, enter our aquatic hero, Aquaman. And he opens up to this old cabin with a couple of old folk named Locke and Wee. I love their names. I don't know why. It's monosyllabic. Let's keep going. But there's a little bit of banter between the old couple and Aquaman, which I really like. Kelly Sue DeConnick does a great job, per usual, at dealing with those little character interactions and adding a little bit of quirky fun to it. And so, Aquaman notices that the young woman is dancing outside in the storm, and is kind of like, but why though? And so we learn that Arthur has kind of been on this island for a little bit because he's been repairing and maintaining the old folks' cabin throughout all the storming, and that's kind of how he's been making his way through. Turn the next day, I assume, or maybe later that day when the storm calms, we meet the red-cloaked woman as she's delivering some flowers up to the highest peak on the island, and it's assumably a sacred place. There's, again, a little bit of banter between Aquaman and this woman, who we learn to be called Kale. One thing I will say, if you are a diehard Aquaman expecting the royal, regal Arthur Curry, this is not him. You have to understand that without his memories, he doesn't have the experiences that made him the character that we know and love. So he's a little bit different, a little bit more youthful, spirited, a little bit more carefree, I guess. There's not a lot to really reserve him right now. So here is where we get a little bit of his origin. Our aquatic hero washed up on the shores of the island in his armor after the results of Drowned Earth. We know that going into this. And we learned that Kale actually was the one that saved him and dragged his body from the water. So she thinks that he didn't have a life previous to the island, that whatever he thinks he forgot doesn't exist, that she was brought to the island just as Athena was born from the skull of Zeus, fully formed. Supposedly to her, Aquaman, Arthur, who she's calling Arauzio, or more specifically, Arauzio, is kind of their champion, born to them from the water. And so we learn that there's been a little bit of the drought as well. Not a lot of food has been making its way to the island. And the old woman comes out exclaiming that there's been a massive influx of fish and that all of the men need Arthur or Arauzio's help down at the dock. And our old buddy Locke starts drowning, and that's not such a great sign because Aquaman doesn't quite remember that he has powers. But that's where I'm going to leave you off in terms of the plot. You guys should definitely go check this out if you're a new Aquaman fan. It's a pretty great starting point, I'd assume. It's a great way for you to learn a little bit more about the character, and as he is more instinctively, because obviously, you know, Arthur's going to attempt to save him. We don't know how, we don't know why. Well, we know why. He's a hero, and we'll get into that. But this book was a really fun read, I must say. The art was excellent. Robson Rocha does a great job. It's really, really sharp, and the detail is all there, even in the backgrounds, which I really like. The artists that don't really spare detail in the backgrounds tend to be some of the best ones. And DC is doing a great job at recruiting some of these guys from overseas, more namely Robson Rocha's from Brazil. And just to let you guys know, my first original piece of comic book art right here was from Robson Rocha. I know you guys really can't see it now because the pencil's difficult, but that should tell you how much I like his art, and I'm really, really glad to see him on one of the big 7 of the Justice League. Again, Kelly Sue DeConnick has a really fun way of bringing out dialogue between characters. I'm interested in to see what she does after Arthur regains his memories and therefore becomes the Regal King, or therefore should become the Regal King that we know and love. And I wonder if she's just going to do her Kelly Sue DeConnick dialogue, if she's going to bring him back, you know, to the royal regal Arthur, who will defend at every cost, or if there's going to be some combination of the two. We'll see. I'm interested in that. And, you know, she's doing a great job at kind of building some new mythology behind the ocean, behind Aquaman. I'm just super, super excited to see what happens after this. The one thing I will say is that it kind of falls victim to a bit of a slower pacing, that first issue-itis, and I don't think it hurts the issue too much, just because if the first issue has to have a little bit more exposition to set me up so I know where I'm going, or even where I've been, I don't mind. I'd rather be aware of what's happening. Overall, this was a really solid issue. I think I'd have to give it like an 8.3 or so. Great, great first outing. Beautiful, beautiful arc. I'm really excited to see where this goes from here. And obviously, great timing with the Aquaman film coming out soon. Definitely check this out. Now, I'm pretty intrigued in the story here. I think that's what grabbed me the most. The character interplay is fun, but you guys should definitely read the rest of the story so that you can get a little bit more of the feel for where the plot is going to be going. I'm excited excited to see where Kelly Sue DeConnick and Robson Rocha are going to be taking Aquaman. Now, do you pull this book or do you pass it? I'm going to give this book a pull. With a score of 8.3, I can't tell you not to pull this book. I enjoy it. If you're new to Aquaman, it's great to pick up, and if you're a fan, maybe you're ready for an all-new direction. No, it's not backwards in the camera. Beautiful. So, yeah, definitely check this book out. Not a bad pick. Now, thank you to everybody who's made it this far in the video, and for those of you that have, I want to make sure you get all the info you need to learn how to win a free comic book, maybe even two, from my sponsor, AJ's Comics in Colchester, Connecticut. Now, this is a great local comic book store in the Connecticut area, but fret not, my friends. If you want to support a great local store and get some great comics for a decent price, you can still do that. They have this awesome mail-in subscription service where every month you modify your pull list online. They give you the books you want, and if you wait for your books to accumulate to $100 or more, the shipping is entirely free. Now, this is a great resource if you A, don't have a local comic book shop near you, or B, maybe you're a veteran, maybe you work in the service, and thank you so much for your service to the country, and here's your opportunity to read some awesome comics at a discounted price, 10% off for your subscription. So make sure you go check them out. The owner at Pete is a great guy, great shop, great books. There's no reason not to check them out. And we will be keeping you guys updated whenever they have sales, so maybe we can get you in on that to make online orders. But to win a copy of Shazam #1 by Jeff Johns digitally, you have to make sure that you're subscribed to the channel down below, like this video, and I'm going to need you to comment down below what was your favorite geeky thing you got this holiday season. Let me know down there. I'm really interested to see what everybody got. Now, there will be another opportunity. So, if this video can get 15 likes or more, I'm going to be giving away a digital copy of American Carnage #1. This is the second issue, but this is the only illustration I have, besides whatever digital thing I'm going to be throwing up on the screen. But it is an amazing start to the series. Issue 2 is just as good and captures all of the momentum of the first issue. So, in order to win, you can do the same thing, but I'm going to need you guys to come follow me and Pete from AJ's Comics on Twitter. Both the links are in the description below. There's also these if you want to see what exactly they are. But, again, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to enter those giveaways and smash that like button so that we can give away another free comic to you guys. So I know issue 2 of American Carnage has already come out, but I don't want to spoil any of that for you guys. So today we're going to be talking about American Carnage #1 by Bryan Hill and Leandro Fernandez. Now, if you don't know, Bryan Hill is a friend of the channel. We've been fortunate enough to interview him multiple times and have some really great conversations with him. If you're not reading American Carnage, we'll talk about that after. But let's get into it. So American Carnage is this really topical confrontation of the ways that America, the society, the government, and the overall machine that is the country has failed us. So the first issue picks up with Agent Sheila Curry having a discussion with the FBI Board of Directors about the death of her partner, Agent Bernard Watson. We learned that her friend and partner was actually lynched outside of his home with a sign saying, well, you can read that for yourself, while his home burned in the distance behind him. Sheila suggests that she thinks that government candidate and philanthropist Win Morgan is responsible for the death of Agent Bernard, as he was conducting an investigation into some of Win Morgan's affairs and his associations with a lot of kind of like the skinhead white supremacist and extremist groups. So the night that Sheila interrogates the culprit, Ross Johnson, in his home, he excuses himself. She notices that he'd been gone for a while and realizes that he's locked himself in a room with his child and his wife, and little does Sheila know there's a TNT strapped to his chest. I don't want to spoil what happens there. Maybe it blows up, maybe it doesn't, but let's move on. So eventually, at the end of her recounting her story, The FBI decides not to look into Win Morgan. It feels like there aren't enough grounds to seed an investigation. But then we're treated immediately to a flashback of our protagonist. His name is Agent Richard Wright. And now this takes place somewhere in Los Angeles about 3 years before the contents of the story. And what's really cool is the artist Leandro Fernandez has this almost Eduardo Rizzo-esque style. And so with this flashback being in black and white, it's very evocative of like a crime and noir film. So he's chasing down a young black man who is suspected of some sort of crime that we don't know about. Richard pulls his gun and corners him. The young boy pulls out something from his jacket. Feeling endangered for his life, the agent shoots him and realizes that it was just his cell phone. And pretty much the entirety of this scene is done without any dialogue until he kills the young boy, in which he screams for help. And so we learn that in the present, Agent Richard Wright's not doing so hot. He's a drug addict. He sleeps with a number of different women, including, paid sex workers. And Sheila is attempting to recruit him to permeate Win Morgan and whatever sort of organization he has that's been enacting all of this social prejudice. This is where we learn that there is a lot more of a social commentary on America that's not one-sided. And so obviously with all of the drumming on about police brutality, and you get a little hint of that in that flashback scene, we learn that Richard Wright's actually half black. And so there's this really genius panel here in their conversation where, Sheila says you can get redemption for that, this, that, and the other thing, and he's not looking for redemption. And what I really like here is that although he's not a fan of Win Morgan, there's this great bit of dialogue here where he says he's seen Morgan on TV. He thinks, worst case, he's a MAGA true believer. More likely, he's cashing in on anti-government, blah, blah. He writes books with flags on the cover. Shitty people buy them. That's not a crime. And he doesn't feel comfortable investigating a private citizen because he took a photograph with a skinhead. And so Sheila says, the black part of you should. This next part I think is the most important. The black part of me wants to keep my head down and tell you to f*** off back to DC. I'm just a fellow working out of a house, and you're still the police. And what I love here is the commentary not only on the fact that he didn't shoot the boy out of racist prejudice, but also that the world is kind of telling white people and black people like how to be white and how to be black. Now, by this point, Agent Richard Wright has agreed to infiltrate Win Morgan and whatever cabal that he's using, again, to enact prejudice. And so he ends up getting some information leading him towards Win Morgan's daughter because she deals in a lot of his affairs. So upon meeting Win Morgan's daughter, Jennifer, he uses a lot of really heavy racist rhetoric, thinking that that's going to get him the job immediately, only to kind of be put in his place. So that doesn't really work out too well. So nevertheless, she still invites him to this business meeting of sorts at Win Morgan's house. Now, it ends on this really cool last page reveal that I'm not going to spoil for you guys because you should definitely go check out this book. It approaches a lot of really interesting topical subjects like society, humanitarianism, civil rights. One of the things that I think a lot of people don't give comic book writers enough credit for is an engaging and realistic dialogue. It makes sense with Bryan Hill's background in film and television that his dialogue is engaging and it has a purpose. They say that in a film, no sentence of dialogue can go wasted. And I feel like in a comic book, that's even more important because they're far more limited in a single 22 to 24 page book. And Bryan does an excellent job at making everything feel real, convincing, and have weight to it. And that also kind of ties into the characters. Via the dialogue and how they act, they're real, they're engaging, and it piques my interest to see where they go from here. I love how we can approach really topical issues in this book without really pointing fingers at any particular group of people. Everybody has their pluses, everybody has their downfalls, and that's one strength of this book, that it doesn't really make an enemy of any particular group of people. Overall, the characters have incredibly unique voices. We're hitting a lot of really deep subject matter with a lot of weight to it. I'm just really enjoying this book. If I had to give it a score, I would probably give it a 9.3 out of 10. This was really good. It doesn't fall victim to a lot of the first issue itis problems that other stories tend to. We get our little bit of exposition and then we get moving right up on into pace. And again, that last page stinger will leave your jaw dropped. And get ready for issue 2, because as soon as you finish this one, you're going to want to check it out. And of course, I'm going to give this one a pull. Definitely go check this book out. It's powerful in the statements that it has to make on our country. Not to mention, I think we're going to get a little bit of an awesome spy thriller to go along with it. Gotta go check this book out. Make sure to go support your local comic book stores and pick this book up. And finally, we have Freedom Fighters issue 1 by the incredible Robert Venditti and Eddie Barrows. Now, if you guys know anything about me, I am a huge fan of Rob Venditti and think he is by far one of the most underrated writers in comic books today. Eddie Barrows' art is also incredibly well done, super intricate, high detail artwork, and that's what I love to see in a comic book, especially something that's like a commentary history piece like this. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Freedom Fighters story takes place on Earth X, where the United States was defeated by Nazi Germany, and so Germany invaded the United States, ended up installing their fascist regime and dictatorship, seizing control over the United States government. And so, on this Earth currently, all that's left are small pockets of American resistance accompanied by the Freedom Fighters, which are this ragtag group of metahumans who are fighting towards American freedom. Clearly. This issue begins with the Freedom Fighters joining in on an American resistance meeting. And what I love here from the get-go is that it really harps on mid-20th century American rhetoric and anti-communist sentiments. I just feel like the dialogue feels so accurate to the time period. Venditti does an excellent job at making me feel engaged and present in 60s America. After the Freedom Fighters joined this pod of resistance in pledging allegiance to the American flag, now we learn that this congregation between the Freedom Fighters and this American Revolution pod are really tasked with infiltrating this war robot production facility in an attempt to try to cripple the Nazi regime. And so, as they're going through their battle plans, the American flag behind them begins to shape and morph as the Plastic Men make their appearance. This is absolutely genius. It would make sense that Nazi Germany would play with using metahumans as war tools or weapons. The Plastic Men begin to dominate the crowd as the Freedom Fighters attempt to protect the rest of this American war unit. And so, one by one, the Freedom Fighters get taken down and snuffed out by the Plastic Men, as one of the resistance members is finally able to make his way out. Days later, as a show of power, the Nazi regime murders the 3 Freedom Fighters in front of the American public on live television, as our dear old friend Uncle Sam begins to realize that he's losing the power of faith and hope in the American people. He makes a very public scene about it as the Plastic Men begin to key in on his location and attempt to snuff him out just like they did the rest of the Freedom Fighters. And in a blaze of glory, he himself fades into nothingness. And there's plenty more to this issue. I really don't want to give it away because it's such a fun, evocative story of wartime American ideals, what we're fighting for, what we should be fighting for, and it all kind of culminates in fighting for the freedom and the equality of every man. I love how we're using such a creative outlet in order to explore that. The art is beautiful. I have a fun time reading old school rhetoric. The dialogue's great. It's just a really, really fun time. To be honest, I don't really have a lot of problems with this book, if many at all. The pacing is all there. The intrigue is here. I had a really good time. I know I'm being a little bit brief with this, but I don't want to give away too much of the plot because I definitely want you guys to check this out for yourself. This book has got to get a nice, clean 9 out of 10 from me. I really enjoyed it. Everything about the atmosphere and the ambiance of the book, not to mention a fun, fast-paced story, leaves me ready for issue 2. Again, this is another book with a great last page reveal that'll get you prepped and hyped for issue 2 just as I am. Definitely make sure you pull this book. It's a lot of fun. If you have any interest in exploring American nationalism through the lens of the everlasting war for freedom of all men and women, this is the book for you. Not to mention, Eddie Barrow's art is absolutely spectacular. The emotiveness and the facial expression and all the characters, all of the movement feels fluid and alive. This is just a great book, guys. Go pick this up for yourselves. Now, as we close this out, I want to give you guys a big thank you for staying this long and watching the entire video. Now, make sure you guys enter that giveaway by leaving a like on this video, subscribe down to the channel below, and let me know what your favorite geeky good you got for Christmas was. And don't forget, check out my sponsor AJ's Comics down in the description below. They're a great little shop, and it's a great way for you to get books at a great cost and support local businesses. Really hope you guys enjoyed this one. Sorry it took me a while to get it out, and we'll be coming at you fast and hard with another episode of Comics Insider very soon. Thank you guys for watching, and this is going to be Dark Knight Nation signing out.